Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Game of Thrones video for today. In this one, we're going to give our thoughts on how we feel about the series as a whole now that it's all over, and whether or not we're still fans, whether or not I am still a fan of Game of Thrones. And spoiler warning, of course, as we've been saying, if you somehow still haven't seen the finale for Game of Thrones Season 8, or the series finale. So I thought this one was worth doing, and I'm just basically going to keep playing it by ear and, seeing where the videos go from here on out for Game of Thrones. The series is over now, so I don't know how many more videos, we're going to do for Game of Thrones. Of course, I will be doing some Fear the Walking Dead videos coming up real soon here because Fear is going to be starting in a couple weeks. And so that's really great news. And there's some early reviews of Fear in, and it sounds like it's a pretty good season 5. So I am excited to see what they have for us on AMC with Fear the Walking Dead. And of course, there will be other series for Westeros or for Game of Thrones in the future for fans. One of them has been canceled, one of the prequels, but there's others that are still in production. And even though it won't be the same team that did Game of Thrones, you won't have D&D. Which may be a good thing for fans, depending on how they felt about that finale. You're going to be getting some different takes and stuff, and ultimately we'll see what they do with the amount of viewers HBO got for that finale being about 19 million viewers on a subscribed network. It would be absolute lunacy for them not to do a sequel of some kind. They really should. I really think that after that finale was such a disappointment, HBO should really rethink the whole not doing a direct sequel and maybe consider doing a direct sequel for Game of Thrones. And maybe make Bran sort of evil, and him having planned the whole thing out and had set off a sequence of events to cause everything to happen the way it did, and have played everybody, and have him not be what he set out to be. So something like that. And I hope HBO will do something like that. Of course, there's kind of rumors that we'll see maybe an Arya spinoff. I don't think any of this is really 100% confirmed yet or anything, but most of what they're saying right now is, and what they have been saying is, prequel series for the future of Game of Thrones. And we'll see if they do a sequel. I think they should do a sequel because that ending, to have that be the final point of the series, the ending of the series, that's very disappointing. So am I still a fan of Game of Thrones? So it's been several days now since Sunday, since the series finale aired. And basically, here's how I'm reconciling it in my mind right now. And you guys can let me know how you're feeling about the series and whether or not you consider yourself to still be a Game of Thrones fan after all of those years and that finale twist that even the cast did not see coming and didn't naturally see coming, is what I guess I should say. So leave your comments below. Are you still a fan of the series, or are you so jaded by the finale that you don't even care anymore and you're not interested in any of the prequel series or whatever HBO does in the future? I want to see your comments below because I want to hear where you guys are at with this one. Because also I want to know if you guys want to continue with the channel here next year or the year after, whenever they get done their first prequel or other series for Game of Thrones, whether or not you want to continue to follow it and you want to see me do reviews for it, you want to discuss it and you think it's worth doing predictions for, and whether or not you think it's worth doing. Is it worth paying attention to after what they did in that finale? So I view myself, am I still a fan of Game of Thrones and of the world of Westeros, with HBO's license for it and everything, and what they'll end up doing in the future, which I think they'll still do quite a bit for it. I don't think they're going to drop it with that level of success and that level of viewership for the 8th season. I would say, yes, I am still a fan of Game of Thrones. I've been very upset this week with the way things ended off. I think that it really didn't need to go that way. The last 2 episodes really didn't need to go like that. You really could have had a different ending there that may have been a bit more predictable, but it may have been better for the longevity of the series and the license. Because you gotta consider and keep in mind, it's when people say, well, it's just a TV series. Well, it's not really, because it's a whole franchise, right? It's kind of like saying Avengers is just a movie. Avengers or Endgame is not just a movie. It's an entire franchise that's going to continue onward. Just like The Walking Dead is not just one TV show. And now, literally, it's not just one TV show. You have all the other series they're going to be doing and movies and all this stuff. Game of Thrones should be somewhat in the same way for HBO, based on demand, if not even more so, because it's a subscription network. And they've got even more. This season was season 8. More people were watching the Game of Thrones final season than ever even watched Walking Dead in its heyday, right? 15 million, and that was on a cable. This is on a subscribed, and they got 19 for the finale. Unbelievable, right? So it has outgrown just the title of a TV series to be a franchise and to be something that can stand the test of time. So that's why I think it was such a misstep in the last couple of episodes there, or in the last season, the last few episodes, because you had so many people watching it, you had done so much right, and then you took this crazy risk that you really didn't need to take, and just kind of, left a bad taste in everyone's mouth with it being the lowest rated, in the last video we did yesterday, the lowest rated episode, but the most people watched the episode, so it was the highest rated in terms of ratings, and the lowest satisfaction for the people who watched it, the lowest satisfaction rating for the series as well in terms of the critics and review scores. So, okay, after 8 years or 9 years with the year off and all the time it took them to do the series, I would say in the end I am still a Game of Thrones fan, but I am very saddened by what they decided to do in the finale. It hurts the series as a whole, as we discussed in the meeting video this week of the series, and it changes the meaning of the series to be one of kind of the biggest tragedy you could, because the thing about it is that it all builds up all their struggle. They go through all this, they do all these things. You have characters that sacrifice themselves for Daenerys, like Jorah and some of the others, and Grey Worm and Missandei, and you have Jon, who goes through all these different things. They defeat all these obstacles to get to a point that is just basically a cliff, and then they just fall off the cliff, right? They kill each other, and then the one gets banished to live with the wildlings, which is kind of let's say the ending's supposed to be bittersweet. It left the fans more bitter than sweet. It's just a bitter end, if you ask me. And so that's really unfortunate. But at the same time, the series did bring a lot of really exciting moments throughout. Very unpredictable, and I guess in the end that's what they kind of wanted to go with more, was to kind of go with the tragedy story. They didn't want to have it be a happy ending. That wasn't the way they originally set it out to be, and it worked for them in the past before, leading up to that point, to do things that were very unpredictable and not have that kind of nice story. I think we all just kind of hoped that in the end all the struggles that all the characters went through would amount to something. And the story is the universe of Westeros, or Game of Thrones, is more nihilistic than that, and it's more kind of dark and bleak than even a lot of us thought it would be. And it took us to get to the end to kind of see that this was their vision, and it's kind of a very nihilistic, bleak, purposeless type of thing. So it really has put a shadow over Game of Thrones and of the franchise for me. I don't look at it the same way as I did before, where I think of it as like this amazing story that in the end it was like this incredible event series that has the best replay value ever, and you can watch it over and tell everybody, oh, you got to see it, because the ending really it's such a bad ending. It really hurts the overall big picture for me of Game of Thrones, and it just makes it feel like a lot of it was just haphazardly done. And they even, if you read the interviews carefully and the things they say, it just feels like they just wanted to play in this middle ground of kind of nihilism and gray, that and even like in all the characters' motivations were kind of in the middle, and because I tend to think that in real life some people are good and some people are bad. You have people like Ramsay, for example, who they're pretty much evil from the time they're kids, and they can go back and forth a bit, but they're always kind of in that section. They can be nice sometimes, and they can put on a show sometimes, but most of the time they're like that. These are people in real life we put in prison, right? Because that's kind of how they are. You can get them help. You can try to help them as best you can. You can release them if you want to. A lot of times they end up right back in the same spot again. They go out there in the world, they do something else wrong, and they go right back in, right? And that's just kind of how they are. Game of Thrones has a different picture of people, where it's kind of in times of violence and in times of things that happen, it's kind of got this more kind of fluid kind of idea of people, where you have some that kind of they float more than people kind of being set and kind of adjusting slightly. It's kind of difficult to describe, but if you read the interviews through and you hear kind of the things that they say about it, and the way they wanted the ending to be, and the way that it's kind of a very dark view of humanity. It's a very dark view, and it's not one that I necessarily like or agree with. Kind of gives you a bit of a sickening feeling, and that's why a lot of people describe in the finale that they kind of feel sick after they watch the finale. That's kind of intentional, that it's sort of a sickening type of deal, that what they did in the end, and that's very sad. But so I am still a fan, because I appreciate all the things that they did bring us over the years. That was really exciting and really fun to watch and really cool. I guess the thing about it is in the end, it feels more like it was just a kind of a drama type of back and soap opera-y kind of thing, where people's characters can float more than what you might have thought that they could, or it just kind of feels like they were filling time, or they were doing stuff. They were having the dramatic character changes, just to kind of get that shock value or get that kind of dramatic response out of the audience, rather than trying to finish it up with some kind of rewarding ending. Because there was no, at the end of Game of Thrones, there's no reward to having spent the time to watch it through. And that's I think what most people are describing, or where the community, at least 60-70% of the community, is kind of in that spot where they were hoping to see some kind of reward for all the time and some kind of bittersweet ending with a little bit more of sweet than bitter, and what they got was maybe 70-30, the opposite, more bitter feelings than sweet feelings. So kind of sadistic in the way they set it up, isn't it? A little bit messed up, if you ask me. A little bit kind of torturing your fans, kind of torturing your readers a little bit, because you're not really giving them what they want, and just when they think you're going to give them something good, you crap all over it. You give them crap, and that's kind of what it is. So it does definitely hurt the franchise. I think it hurts the way the fans feel about it. I think at least that 70%. And it's kind of messed up. It's kind of sadistic in the end to kind of do it that way, because it doesn't feel natural to me. It feels more like you kind of we're going back and forth and messing with people on purpose and having the drama back and like a soap opera. One day this person's it, and the next day they're that, and it's such a the fluctuations are so large. It feels like you did it on purpose just to mess with people, and it doesn't. At least for me, it didn't necessarily feel natural. The 20-30% think it did. But, 60, 70, 80%, depending on where you want to go with that and your viewpoint, don't. So am I still a fan? Yes, but I don't think as highly of the series. I'm going to take the poster down soon. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I don't think as highly of the series as I once did. I don't think it's this epic, great, brilliant type. There's moments of brilliance in it, but now after seeing it through all the way to the end, I don't think they had this brilliant payoff and this brilliantly designed ending to it. I think it felt like they were just throwing things out there, and they just decided to go with something that just nobody would predict, and just would be like, okay, let's just go with that. That's in the middle. That's kind of gray, and that's what we're going to do. So that saddens me, because it makes me think less highly of the series, that they didn't have, it's clear if they didn't have this kind of grandiose type of ending idea, or if they did, the way it played itself out, based on the rating scores from Rotten Tomatoes, 57% for the final episode. Clearly, it wasn't a rewarding experience for majority of the fans. So leave your comments. Let me know how you're feeling about it. And do you want to see more future content from me for Game of Thrones, or do you think we should just go back to Fear the Walking Dead 100%, Walking Dead videos, stuff like that, other shows, Stranger Things, other things that are coming up instead, and just leave it be because it was that disappointing? Where are you? Are you kind of where you're like, well, I still enjoyed it as a whole. I'm just really sad that they went this route at the end, but what can you do, right? It's I guess the story of Game of Thrones is kind of a tragedy type story, and that's kind of sad, right? Because we thought it could be something more, and I don't think of those type of stories as something you'd really want to go through for 9 years just to be let down like that. It's kind of sad. Laura Grimes says, always checking new videos. I just want to forget the ending and make up my own in my own head. I've been doing that too. You know what I mean? And I feel you there, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been too. You're kind of thinking, like in the video we did, how it should have ended. You kind of think about like different ideas for it and how you would prefer it. There's a few people that are being argumentative saying, well, I haven't heard anyone come up with a better ending. It's like that kind of means that they sort of like the ending more than almost any other. And that's really weird to me. I guess it depends what you wanted to see. If you were set up in the beginning with the Ramsay quote thinking that it's definitely not going to have a happy ending and it's been foreshadowed to have a miserable type of ending, then Okay, that's fine. If that's kind of what you wanted if that's what you wanted the series to be, then I get that. If that's what you wanted it to be. I wanted it to be something that had, again, in real life too, when you struggle and when you go through events, when you work really hard or when you do things, there's a reward at the end. If you work 80 hours a week or 60 hours or 50 hours a week instead of 40 or 30 or 20, you get rewarded. We expect that. That's the way our whole society works. You go into work for 50 hours, you get paid for 50 hours. And sometimes things mess up. Maybe you crash your car or something on the way to work, and that sets you back a year or a few months or whatever, and you got to save up to be able to pay for repairs or whatever and get back to where you were. Sometimes there's setbacks, right? But generally, you get rewarded for your efforts. And that's it's a sadistic ending for Game of Thrones. You kind of would want... You should appreciate your fans to the point where you kind of want to reward them for what they did. The same as if you hired a worker and you want to pay them, or you work for someone and they pay you for what you do for them. You want a reward there, and that's not what they gave the fans at the end, which again is, to me, psychologically, I feel like it's a bit messed up, because you should appreciate your fans. I mean, you have so many of them. Why would you trash them? Why would you want to do that to them and expect for them to come back? It's just kind of sad and very dark, right? So, but I think a lot of people are kind of making up their own endings in their own mind for how they would want it to end, to where it was worth the years to watch it through. Because there are some really sad moments that make you want to say, just detach yourself and just say, okay, I'm done. And you stick with it because you want to see people pay the price for what they did. The villains get theirs, and the heroes kind of succeed. And the heroes don't succeed in this. There are, again, it's a very bleak viewpoint. There are no heroes, right? Oh, it's not. In real life, there are heroes. There are people that do good. There are people that do help others and have that kind of a life where in the end they leave the world a little bit better than when they came in, at least as far as their direct actions, right? But okay, fine. It's everyone's inside their own viewpoint. Make me a ... says Trev. The books have not been the books not being finished didn't help. Do you think they should have just waited until they were? In quotes or brackets, I know a long time. Trev, do you think that would be a problem with The Walking Dead if the series ever goes past the comics? So, again, we'll get back more into Walking Dead stuff soon, because I know that's a heavy concentration for the channel, which I'm really glad right now it is, right? Because, I feel like Walking Dead AMC definitely appreciates their fans more than Game of Thrones did. Again, you try your best to reward people. There's some sad moments and there's some stuff in there, but you generally reward them there's a bit of sadism in there too, maybe with certain characters that are killed off, but you tend to give them enough rewards there in the struggle to make it worth the while, whereas in Game of Thrones they clearly did not do that, and I don't know how anyone could argue otherwise. They really didn't. So it's what it is. But the books not being finished didn't really matter, at least from what I've read in interviews. George R. R. Martin has basically said that it's kind of the ending that it's a similar type. It's the ending that he approved. He kind of approved this ending. They cleared it with him, and they were all working on that together. So he was involved in choosing this ending. That's kind of the ending he wanted. Again, that's where kind of the sadism. If you listen carefully to things he says in that, it's kind of like, it's kind of messed up. There's one that he talked about where he'll get. You can watch it on YouTube where he used to get letters. He says the internet is toxic because he used to get letters, and sometimes people would read him letters or write him letters just to say that they hated his series when they got through it all. And he's confused by this. And it's like, dude, you know what I mean? How are you confused by this? I don't know. It's his story, whatever. It's cool. Obviously, he's very talented, and he's awesome at what he does and everything. He wouldn't have created this universe. It's just, again, it's a bit sadistic and it's a bit messed up that there's so much darkness in it near the end, and there's so much to it to where even if the books were finished ahead of time, it really wouldn't have mattered. Maybe it would have softened the blow so that people knew in the end there is no reward for your time. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's bleak, it's dark, and it's even darker. It's even worse than some of the midway stuff, midway struggle. So there's no reward to the end of the struggle. It's just that tragedy type of story. But maybe he's a fan of those tragedies. Maybe that's what he wanted to do with his story. So it's his story, and we can't make it the way we want it to be. We can wish that it ended in a way that would have left us satisfied or happy with it. But if it's a tragedy type of story that's just sad and gloomy in the end, and dark in that kind of way, and there's hardly any payoff, if any at all, to all the struggle for all the characters that they go through all over the years, then that's just the vision that they had, and it's just one that's it's not a reward, and the numbers prove it. It's not a very rewarding experience for fans in the end. April Tiff says, basically, Jon and Arya put in all the work to protect others and their family. That's why Sansa and Bran are so comfy. Yeah, it doesn't reward this series, and this story doesn't reward those who sacrifice themselves, those that work really hard, those that want to achieve and want to fight and want to do everything they can for humanity. It changes them 2 episodes later into those that don't care about humanity, apparently. And it rewards those that do the least. It rewards those that sit in the background and do the least. And that is totally not realistic, in my opinion. You do not get rewarded in life for sitting in the background and letting other people do all the work. At least not for us peasants who have to, working class people. Maybe if you're, if you come from a wealthy family and all you do is just sit around and hire people to do jobs, hire a manager. If you got a company, let's say, you hire a manager to do that, and then you just sit in the background and reap the rewards. Okay, I can kind of understand that sort of way of thinking about it. But for the rest of us, we get rewarded when we do things. We don't get rewarded for sitting around and doing nothing. That's not the goal. That's not, how we go to work every day. We do what we do in order to, achieve, in order to live, in order to do what we're doing. We don't just sit in the background and expect to reap all the rewards or be the ones that are left standing because all the minions went and killed themselves, when you were, and you reap all the rewards for what they, that's kind of nasty, right? And again, that's where we're at. The more you think about it, the more you dig in, kind of the uglier it gets in a lot of ways. If you kind of stay on the outside, again, you're safe if you stay in the background, you don't get in the dirt. But if you're somebody who's used to getting into it, thinking about it more, getting into it, at least based on the way my mind works, yours can work whatever way, everyone's different in the way they think is different, but the more you get into it, the more you kind of see it, at least for me, the more I think about it, the more kind of saddened I am by it. So I try to take the positive approach and just say, well, I enjoyed it very much for the struggles and things they went through, and that was the journey, because the end destination, happiness being the journey, not the destination. There really was no destination to get to. And they basically say as much if you listen to them carefully in their interviews and in the things they've said now, and even prior to the ending coming up. If you listen carefully, you'll kind of get it, and that's kind of messed up. Anyway, that'll be it for today's video. I'll listen to you guys. Where do you guys want to go with this? Do you want to see more? Do you still want to see a top 10 best villains for Game of Thrones? Do you care? Where are you at? Let me know. Leave your comments below if you want to see more videos for Game of Thrones, or maybe some more predicting or discussing the, and we'll try to keep it I'll try to keep it as positive as I can, but also authentic and honest too. Not disingenuous. Honest and, try to be positive, but honest at the same time. That's who I am, okay? So it depends who you are, but I won't gear you guys. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'll tell you where I'm feeling, where I'm at, and I'll try to stay positive because, sitting in the negativity all the time is not good either. So we try, but we also can't, at least for me, I'm pretty, I have integrity with the way I think. And see, this is the problem with liars. If you guys didn't know this, the problem with lying is that you actually start to lie to yourself, and then your thoughts become scrambled. It becomes like spaghetti code. It becomes all messed up because when you're lying, you don't know. So I try to keep high integrity. I try to be honest with you guys as best as I can and tell you guys what I'm feeling. But I also want to try to stay positive too, because I don't just want it to be like a month of complaining about Game of Thrones ending. You know what I mean? Or 2 months of complaining about it. So we'll see where we're at. Anyway, that's it for today's. Let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. As usual, it's Trev. Thank you guys for all the support over the years. I do appreciate it, and I hope you guys are still kind of enjoying, or maybe the videos we're doing, if nothing else, are kind of helping you kind of sort your thoughts on it. That's kind of what I'm doing in this process with you guys as we go through here, is kind of thinking about sorting my thoughts on how I feel about the series now that it's over with such a lackluster ending. That's it for this one. I'll see you guys again soon for another video. As always, this is Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.